This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant, and you're stuck with me for the next 30 minutes. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. Here's what we got for y'all. Tonight, we're learning new details of the impact vaccines could have in protecting kids from the virus. Then, progressives put the pressure on the Biden White House to prepare for a midterm showdown in 2022. But first, here's what you need to know right now. The president was in Pittsburgh today to unveil and promote his multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure plan.
It's time to build our economy from the bottom up and from the middle out, not the top down. That hadn't worked very well.
Biden's proposal includes more than $600 billion to rebuild and transform the nation's transportation infrastructure, highways, for instance, but it goes a lot further than that. $111 billion would go toward water pipes and sewers, $100 billion for broadband internet, and another $100 billion would upgrade the power grid with an emphasis on delivering clean energy. But how the plan would be paid for is creating some serious disagreement.
Let's do an infrastructure bill. Let's don't turn it into a massive effort to raise taxes on businesses and individuals.
Right now, much of Biden's plan would be financed by higher corporate taxes. The Biden administration says the move would raise up to $2 trillion over the next 15 years. Only the first part of the proposal was unveiled today. The second part will focus on tackling issues like universal pre-K and childcare. The brunt of that will likely be paid for by raising the taxes on the wealthy. However, little information has been released. Details on that are expected to be announced in April. Biden hopes to pass the plan by summer. The effort could avoid Republican roadblocks and filibuster if it goes through the budget process like the recent relief package. Though, even then, Democrats would have to be fully united to pass it through razor-thin majorities in the House and Senate. New York police arrested a man for the assault of a 65-year-old Asian woman on her way to church. Brandon Elliott previously served 17 years in prison for stabbing his mother to death. He was released back in 2019 and was serving a lifetime on parole. He faces several charges in the attack, including assault as a hate crime. The victim, a Filipino immigrant, was discharged from the hospital Tuesday after being treated for serious injuries. New York City police say this time last year, the city had recorded 11 attacks on an Asian victim. This year, that number has tripled to 33. Nationwide, there's also been a spike. The attack is added to the frustration and fear being felt in AAPI communities, especially because witnesses watched the situation unfold and literally shut the door on the victim rather than intervening.
We continue to demand justice and mercy for our community, but how many times will you make us stand here and beg for help?
A new study claims Pfizer's COVID vaccine is even more effective in teens than it is in adults. According to the clinical trial results on kids ages 12 to 15, the vaccine was 100% effective. No infections were found in the more than 2,000 children who received the vaccine. The trial also found the age group was able to handle the doses as well.
It was definitely a very special opportunity to be able to do something like this, because usually I'm just at home doing online school and there's not much I can really do to fight back against the virus.
Pfizer plans to submit the results to the Food and Drug Administration as soon as possible to expand the emergency use authorization. If the findings do hold up, it could mean some children could start getting the vaccine before the beginning of the next school year. Experts say getting kids vaccinated is another crucial step in ending the pandemic. This trial just tested the vaccine on one portion of the child population. Newsy's Lindsay Thies breaks down the timeline for all kids.
1, 2, 3.
Dr. Susanna Nagy counts her twin daughters through their first dose of a Pfizer shot. The 9-year-olds are among fewer than 150 children in the phase 1 trial for kids 12 and younger.
It was exciting, but also a bit nerve-wracking and scary for the first part, but it's really easy.
This is Lois, and she's 7 weeks. And then Charlotte just turned 2 on Tuesday.
Rachel Guthrie, a nurse, chose to get vaccinated during pregnancy, passing on antibodies to her newborn. Her 2-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son are among the first 750 children to get the Moderna vaccine.
I'm doing this because I love them and I want them to be safe. I want them to be able to go back
to normal and our kids to go back to normal at school.
So when will that normal arrive? Or at the very least, when will a vaccine come for kids? Pfizer hopes to start vaccinating children ages 12 to 15 before the start of next school year. And Johnson & Johnson said back in early March, vaccines for children under 18 could be available by September. But pediatric experts that I spoke with say wide child COVID vaccinations won't happen until next year at the earliest.
There won't be vaccines for all children for this fall. The timeline isn't there to have them tested and available. But hopefully by the beginning of 2022, there will be vaccines.
When you talk about their immune systems are still growing up just like they are. And there's a big difference between a 6-month-old immune system to a 6-year-old's immune system to a 16-year-old's immune system.
Since many of the COVID vaccines have been shown to be safe and effective in adults, the FDA won't require such a large trial for kids. What remains to be seen, though, how willing parents will be to sign their kids up for shots.
Whatever the new normal is going to be, I want us to get there.
Lindsay Thies, Newsy, San Francisco.
Exotic dancing, a road trip, a pimp with a gun. It's a tale as old as time. I think the bar for turning tweets into a movie has just been set. Here's what's trending. A24 just dropped a trailer for what might be the first film based on a 148 tweet thread that starts like this.
You want to hear a story about how me and this bitch fell out? It's kind of long, but it's full of suspense.
That might have been the understatement of 2015. Zola is our contemporary Odyssey, where instead of a dude wandering around for 10 years, you get 2 new friends taking a trip to Florida to dance and make some money, but instead getting caught up with an idiot boyfriend and a violent pimp. So only a little weirder than Odyssey. The film has been years in the making, and our modern-day bard, Asia Wells King, also known as Zola, served as one of the writers and executive producers. The film has already gotten great reviews, so if you learn anything from the saga, it's this. Just tweet through it, even if you're taking a road trip with an entrepreneur you just met at Hooters. Turns out we're not the only ones talking about the NCAA during work hours. Supreme Court justices heard oral arguments today and weighed in a bit on the issue of compensation for students who are also athletes. The case was brought by former D1 basketball and football athletes who say the NCAA's rules restricting education-related compensation is illegal. The day also featured a soundbite from the usually silent Justice Clarence Thomas.
It just strikes me as odd that the coaches' salaries have ballooned and they're in the amateur ranks, as are the players.
While several justices seemed to agree that the payments in question should be allowed, there was some concern that this would open the door for other challenges. We'd be remiss not to point out that this oral argument took place during March Madness, the major cash cow for the NCAA. We already know how much of that the players receive. March 31st is the International Transgender Day of Visibility, which is a day to raise awareness about discrimination against trans and non-binary folks, and also celebrate and uplift their accomplishments. The day comes at a time when representation and visibility is at an all-time high. Rachel Levine just became the most high-ranking openly trans person in the US government, and the 2020 general election saw an increase in trans people elected to state office. But let's not get the all-time high confused with satisfactory or even sufficient representation or visibility. According to GLAAD, there's been a decrease in transgender characters on screen in media, and since they began tracking trans characters, most of the depictions have been negative. And the Human Rights Campaign has called real-world violence against trans people a national epidemic, and it's Black trans women who are disproportionately impacted. For all these reasons and myriad others, some trans advocates have expanded a Trans Day of Visibility to a Trans Week of Action, with a goal of opposing legislation across the country they see as harmful, like Arkansas's ban on gender-affirming healthcare for trans youth. That bill is currently in the hands of the Arkansas governor, and unless he vetoes it, it could become the first of its kind signed into law. President Biden has been in office for 70 days, and progressive organizers have been watching closely to ensure he delivers on campaign promises favored by the left. As Newsy's Sheer Tarlow reports, success during midterms in 2022 depends on it.
The 2020 election remains fresh in the minds of many Democrats. But progressive organizers are already jumping full on into prepping for 2022.
What will it take to be successful for Democrats in 2022?
Organizers at leading progressive groups like the PCCC, Our Revolution, RootsAction.org, and No Excuses PAC tell Newsy that if Democrats want to win big in 2022, they'll need to push forward a bold agenda, and fast.
If Biden does not deliver big for working people, the right wing will come storming back in November of 2022.
Already, progressives worry the president's concessions to moderates and conservatives in Congress on student loan forgiveness, a $15 minimum wage, and income limits for stimulus checks could haunt Democrats in the midterms.
If people aren't seeing real relief coming from a Democratic Congress and the Democratic administration, then there's a real risk, right? There's going to be some serious pain coming because folks aren't seeing the benefits of voting for Democrats.
In recent years, the left's political power has grown as it's gotten better at organizing and fundraising. It's also more willing to criticize and challenge the Democratic establishment than before.
There's no doubt that Democrats in Congress are on notice that we are ready to primary you.
Cohen says RootsAction.org plans to publish a report detailing which Democrats should be challenged from the left in 2022. Other progressive groups, like No Excuses PAC, have already started targeting incumbent Democrats.
She seems to have no shame, and without our votes, she'll have no job.
With pressure campaigns and ads across radio, TV, and newspapers.
Manchin, as soon as he came out taking a position against the COVID relief bill, we were running ads across the state of West Virginia on the radio and in newspapers, calling that out as a bad idea and just letting people know they did it. Same thing with Kyrsten Sinema when she's, over the course of this administration, where she's taken what we consider to be bad positions, we've again run radio ads there. And she, like Manchin, has softened.
At the same time, many progressives admit the administration's concessions are relatively minor compared with the victories they secured in the COVID relief package, like stimulus checks, monthly child tax credits, and expanded access to health care. They also feel optimistic about the administration's plans to tackle climate change and modernize the nation's infrastructure.
The Biden administration is taking us in a very positive direction. They're, the way that they're signaling, at least on this infrastructure bill, was important.
More moderate Democrats, meanwhile, worry that embracing the left will make it harder for the party to fend off challenges from Republicans, especially in swing districts. Historically, midterms have been seen as a referendum on the party in control of the White House. And in almost every election since World War II, the party of the sitting president has lost seats in the House and Senate. That matters because Democrats' control of Congress currently hangs by a thread. A loss of just 5 House seats and 1 Senate seat could give Republicans majorities. Aware of the dynamics that exist for the president's party and eager to avoid repeating history, organizers on the left say an early and sustained drip of delivering to voters is key to making gains in 2022.
Taking action early will set the tone on what folks can expect by voting for Democrats. And if there's no action, then that's going to set a tone as well.
Shira Tarlow, Newsy, Washington.
For the descendants of Harriet Tubman, getting her face on the $20 bill is about more than just showing props to one of America's most courageous abolitionists. Getting Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill has been a years-long saga that started back in 2016. After hitting a snag during the Trump administration, President Biden's Treasury Department is examining ways to speed things up a bit. In all of this, one of Tubman's descendants has been keeping track of the progress. Newsy Johanna Greenaway spoke to Tubman's great-great-great-grandniece about her ancestor replacing Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill and what that could signify for Black Americans.
Amid a national reckoning on race, the U.S. is taking a closer look at who it holds up as an American patriot.
She had an attitude of, well, I am here And so I'm going to make this country what it should be for all of us.
Ernestine Wyatt is Harriet Tubman's great-great-great-grandniece. Her Aunt Harriet is set to replace President Andrew Jackson on the $20 bill.
It's going to exemplify her contribution as an American patriot. Aunt Harriet stood for America too. You know, if you want change, then you have to be the change. And that's what she did all of her life.
But it turns out that's a long process involving design reviews and counterfeit prevention measures. Wyatt is hoping the new bill will be ready in time for Tubman's bicentennial birthday next year. And she's been talking to President Biden about it.
He said that, that I would not have to remind him about his promises, The
Biden administration reintroduced the Obama-era effort after the Trump administration put it on pause. Now the Treasury Department is trying to speed up the process.
It's important that our notes reflect the history and diversity of our country, and Harriet Tubman's image gracing the new $20 note would certainly reflect that.
The current face of the $20 bill, President Andrew Jackson, owned hundreds of enslaved people and pursued policies on forcibly moving Native Americans, leading to the Trail of Tears.
Some people like to elevate his status as a man of the people, but he was a man of white people. He did amazing things, yes, as president, but also the stain of what he did, smears anything that he did that was good.
Historian Kate Larson says the new note will celebrate Tubman's contributions and symbolize ways America is moving forward.
She really is an American icon, a patriot, like is supposed to be on our currency, these American founding fathers and patriots. And to have a woman of color who came from absolutely nothing, the worst circumstances you can imagine as an enslaved person, to rise up and really fight for those values that we as Americans claim that we fight for: freedom, equality, justice. She really fought for them.
Larson hopes the new note will inspire people to keep fighting for those values.
Maybe she'll be a great reminder to people every time they see her image on a $20 bill that we still have work to do.
And Wyatt is proud to see her Aunt Harriet take her place among other American patriots.
For too long in the past, we've upheld, without even thinking, we've upheld people that had racist views. African Americans are a part of this country. They have made this country and built this country with free labor for all those years. And we deserve, our place right alongside our white counterpart.
For Newsy, I'm Johanna Grenaway.
If you haven't done so already, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. In the meantime, when I want to borrow a $20 bill, do I say, "Let me hold a Tubman," or "Let me hold a tub"? Holler at me and let me know how we are collectively doing this. A woman is fighting for justice after she says police officers killed her sister, but the department hasn't acknowledged its role in what happened. Now, a group called Copwatch is helping her family and others to hold officers accountable. National reporter Alexa Liacco met the group that says it's seen a surge of volunteers in the wake of George Floyd's death.
If you ask Maria more about her sister, you'll see a smile only family can bring out.
If people had met Kayla, would have loved her.
They grew up as best friends, and even though it drove her crazy, Maria always let Kayla borrow her clothes, anything she wanted.
She wanted to wear the clothes that made her feel good.
She knew it helped her sister, who was transgender and identified as female.
The other kids would taunt her relentlessly.
Kayla's struggle didn't end when she left the bullies in school. She was then diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Maria and her family called the police several times for help.
Each occasion, Kayla walked into the ambulance on her own.
Until one night in 2013, as this lawsuit shows, Kayla's roommate called police for a welfare check. Maria says the police told Kayla they had a warrant for her arrest.
And Kayla was scared. She was like, "No, that's not true. I'm going to go and make a phone call." The minute she turned to make that phone call, that's when the officers grabbed her and piled on top of her.
Multiple officers held Kayla down for several minutes.
Just like George Floyd, her last words were, "Get off me, I can't breathe." And the officer looked at her while she's laying there, dead, exposed, and said, "Well, what is it? Is it a he or a she?"
8 years later, Maria says she has no closure. A judge dismissed the family's wrongful death lawsuit, and the Police Review Commission cleared all officers of wrongdoing. But there's one thing giving Maria hope: Berkeley Copwatch.
Mental health meeting on Thursday.
Maria is working with Copwatch's founder, Andrea Pritchett, to hold police in their neighborhood accountable.
We decided to begin witnessing and just to stand in solidarity with people as they were having interactions with the police.
On the ambulance, I'm having an anxiety attack.
For 31 years, Andrea and her team have listened to police scanners. They then drive to the scene with the goal of taking pictures and videos of tense situations. Once video is collected, Mariah Yates compiles the information of each police encounter.
You have a First Amendment right to film the police in all 50 states. And it's important to do so. Exercise your rights, or what's the point of having them?
All this video can help hold police accountable, but Berkeley professor Nikki Jones says people have to understand that there is sometimes more than is on video.
The lens is going to be trained on what's meaningful and important to the person behind the lens.
That just because you have video is no guarantee of justice. However, if we as a local organization can gather that information and make it available to the people in our community so that they can make bigger decisions about what kind of policing do we want in our community.
For Copwatch, that means separating mental health care from policing.
We need officers, but we don't need officers for mental health calls, ever.
And beyond that, they want their data to improve the relationships between officers and the community.
It's been a long time coming, but it makes me feel hopeful.
I'm Alexa Liaco reporting.
That's it for us, gang. As always, thanks for watching. We'll be back for more in the Loop tomorrow, same time, same place. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.